The 1980s had movie studios spending huge amounts of money like it was candy at a parade. And when these big projects failed, Hollywood called them disasters and pushed them aside. But the audience didn't care. The movies were loud, messy, and full of feeling. What the critics hated ended up defining the decade, becoming the films people still love to talk about today.
Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get into it.
Twins had to be the dumbest idea anyone ever approved. Arnold, at the peak of his action hero fame, played a perfect, totally naive guy raised on a remote island. He finds out he has a twin brother, and that brother is Danny DeVito, a street-smart hustler full of debt and bad decisions living in Los Angeles. The story follows Julius showing up in the city on his 35th birthday. After learning about Vincent, pure mismatched chaos happens as they dodge criminals, search for their long-lost mother, and realize that even though they are total opposites, they're better as family. DeVito almost left the project because he spent weeks doubting whether the tall and short, muscle and brain buddy idea could carry a full movie. He worried about being typecast and stepping too far out of his comfort zone, until Ivan Reitman and Arnold convinced him to take the leap. Arnold made an even crazier choice by giving up his usual big upfront paycheck and taking a third of the film's profits with DeVito and Reitman. His agents thought this was insane, but it ended up making him more money than his usual explosion-filled blockbusters when Twins became a huge box office hit. The idea started when Reitman saw Arnold and DeVito together at the Toronto Film Festival. He immediately imagined the funny visual contrast and built the story around it, turning all three of them into creative and financial partners during production. Critics completely destroyed the movie, calling it lowbrow garbage that wasted Arnold's action reputation on cheap visual jokes and predictable fish-out-of-water humor. But audiences ignored all the negative reviews, making it one of 1988's biggest hits, creating a lifelong friendship between the trio and proving that sometimes the dumbest ideas make the most fun movies when everyone fully commits to the joke.
Willow takes you into a big, magical story where a small farmer named Willow finds a baby floating down the river. He suddenly has to protect her from an evil queen's huge army. He teams up with Mad Mardigan, a confident swordsman who talks big but delivers when it counts, plus tiny magical creatures and a cursed sorceress on an epic adventure full of castle battles and magical fights that cost George Lucas and Ron Howard a fortune to make. Critics slammed the movie in 1988, calling it a shameless Star Wars copy and medieval clothes. They said Lucas was trying to catch lightning in a bottle again, this time with dwarves and dragons instead of droids and lightsabers. But audiences went to theaters anyway, because sometimes people just want sword fights and magic without thinking too much. 17-year-old Warwick Davis handled his first big lead role while running through freezing mud in heavy costumes and carrying his own video camera to capture all the chaos, making real, funny, and exhausting personal diaries. This footage stayed in his attic for years before showing up on Blu-ray releases. Val Kilmer almost didn't play Matt Mardigan because John Cusack got far in auditions. Cusack still gets upset about losing the role, even decades later. Kilmer brought a cool, funny, and offbeat energy that shaped the whole set. The real gossip is that the tension between Joanne Welly and Kilmer playing warrior princess Sorka and the rogue mercenary turned into a real romance during night shoots and horseback scenes, leading to marriage after filming ended. The movie cost $35 million, and critics called it unoriginal, but fans didn't care. They wanted heroes to cheer for, making Willow a cult classic that still has people talking about a sequel 35 years later.
Roadhouse takes you into a neon-lit small-town bar where legendary bouncer Dalton is hired to clean up the Double Deuce, the roughest dive in Missouri. The bar is controlled by corrupt local kingpin Brad Wesley, who terrorizes the town with violence and intimidation. Dalton puts together a team, including his mentor Wade Garrett, and falls for Doc Elizabeth Clay, while slowly taking down Wesley's empire through bigger and bigger fights, ending with Dalton ripping a guy's throat out with his bare hands. Critics slammed the movie as macho nonsense that glorified vigilante violence. The infamous throat-ripping scene became a symbol of cinematic excess, causing real panic among parents who demanded cable censorship and ratings investigations. TV versions were heavily edited to remove the brutality and romantic scenes.
Patrick Swayze insisted on doing most of his own fight scenes, even with a bad knee, which led to torn ligaments and bruises that nearly stopped production. Sam Elliott acted as his support during tense moments with the crew when stunts got too hard. Kelly Lynch spent tough days rehearsing emergency room scenes while dealing with crowds of fans at every location, later saying that the chaos and media attention made real adrenaline mix with the fiction during the barn roof love scene. The friendship between Swayze and Elliott made the film feel real, with Elliott constantly keeping the mood light during the physically exhausting night shoots that left the cast genuinely beat up. Despite all the controversy over glorifying bar fights, or maybe because of it, audiences ignored critics and made Roadhouse a cult hit. It showed that sometimes people just want to watch a philosophical bouncer kick ass in tight jeans while sharing Zen wisdom about pain. The violence everyone complained about became exactly what fans loved most.
Rad throws you into a small-town BMX world, where teen Crew Jones has to choose between taking his SATs like his mom wants, or racing an insane BMX course called Hell Track, which offers $100,000 and a Corvette to whoever survives it. Naturally, he picks the bike over college, because what 17-year-old wouldn't risk their future on dirt jumps and broken bones? The story becomes an underdog tale, where corrupt race promoter Duke Best keeps rigging things for his sponsored champion, Bart Taylor. Crew in his town have to crowdfund their own team, Rad Racing, just to get him into the competition, leading to a finale where Crew beats big corporate money with pure determination. Critics called this reckless nonsense, saying it encouraged kids to hurt themselves on bikes. And they weren't completely wrong. Parents nationwide panicked when kids tried copying the stunts, leading to local news warnings and some schools banning BMX bikes after the movie came out. Lori Loughlin spent weeks before filming learning real BMX tricks from pros because she refused to just stand there looking pretty. She insisted on doing her own riding in the famous prom dance scene, where she and Crew freestyle on bikes in front of classmates. She later admitted at fan conventions that the training left her bruised and genuinely scared of falling. The movie was shot in Calgary using hundreds of local BMX fans as extras, with Bill Allen mingling freely among the crowd, creating a grassroots energy that helped the film gain its cult reputation. There's a legend about lost footage from test screenings, showing a longer final race where Crew nearly loses after a crash, plus an extended dance sequence that was cut for pacing, with bootleg clips rumored to exist at BMX festivals but never officially released. This all turned Rad into a mythical cult classic that parents hated but kids adored for rejecting safe choices and chasing impossible dreams.
Scrooged takes Dickens' A Christmas Carol and drops it into 1980s corporate Manhattan. Frank Cross, the youngest and meanest TV network president ever, treats everyone terribly while producing a live holiday special. He alienates his ex-girlfriend, Claire, terrorizes his secretary, Grace, and fires employees on Christmas Eve, until 3 increasingly wild ghosts haunt him, showing his past mistakes and a bleak future, leading him to crash his own broadcast with an unscripted redemption speech. Critics were split on this dark comedy. Some praised Bill Murray's sharp energy, while others said it was too mean for a Christmas movie and missed the usual holiday warmth. Murray returned to filming after a 4-year break under huge pressure, clashing with director Richard Donner over tone and improvisation. Murray kept ad-libbing, but Donner wanted him to follow the script, creating real tension that made Murray's on-screen shouting feel genuinely threatening to the other actors. Carol Kane played the ghost of Christmas Present as a violently slapstick character who beat Murray with toasters and fists. During one take, she accidentally cut his lip open, shutting down production for days while Kane cried hysterically and briefly considered quitting out of guilt. 3 of Murray's real brothers played supporting roles, turning the set into a bittersweet family reunion years after their father's death. Bill described the experience as both healing and sad because the comedy scenes carried real family history underneath the jokes. The film's sharp cynicism split audiences. Some loved Murray's unfiltered performance, while others hated how harsh it felt compared to traditional Christmas stories. But that very edge is why fans celebrated it as the most honest holiday movie about redemption, forcing you to face how terrible you've become. Better Off Dead takes you to a snowy California suburb where nervous high schooler Lane Meyer's world falls apart after his girlfriend Beth dumps him for arrogant ski champion Roy Stalin. Lane spirals into one ridiculous attempt after another to end it all, but his own awkwardness and perfect comedic timing keep messing things up. Meanwhile, his strange family and odd neighbors pile on the chaos until French exchange student Monique shows up to help him find confidence again, leading to a final ski race showdown against Roy. Critics didn't know what to do with this movie because it mixed teen romance with cartoonish logic and absurd humor, totally different from normal 1985 coming-of-age comedies. They called it incoherent nonsense that couldn't decide what kind of movie it wanted to be. John Cusack even walked out of his own premiere halfway through, angry at director Savage Steve Holland for turning what he expected to be a straightforward emotional story into a cartoonish nightmare. He later said he felt betrayed by the tone shift and refused to promote the film for years, only admitting decades later that he was surprised by its cult status. Diane Franklin spent months learning a French accent because she was scared of being mocked by real French speakers. She ended up bonding with Curtis Armstrong during freezing Lake Tahoe shoots, dealing with costume problems and bad weather that made the ski scenes miserable to film. The famous animated hamburger singing Van Halen's "Everybody Wants Some" almost got cut several times because studio executives thought it was too weird. Holland fought to keep it, though at least one fully produced animated sequence remains locked away somewhere, never released but whispered about by collectors. The movie bombed at first because audiences expecting a normal teen comedy got something aggressively weird instead. But that very strangeness made fans love it, celebrating it as a fearless rejection of safe storytelling that spoke to anyone who ever felt completely ridiculous while trying to survive high school heartbreak.
Cocktail takes you into New York City nightlife, where cocky ex-Army guy Brian Flanagan can't get a business job, so he starts bartending under his mentor, Doug Coughlin. He learns flair bartending, bottle flips, juggling, and tricks that make them the hottest duo in the club scene, until Doug secretly hooks up with Brian's girlfriend, Coral. This betrayal causes a bitter split, sending Brian to Jamaica, where he falls for artist Jordan Mooney. Then Doug shows up, married to a rich younger woman, and challenges Brian to a bet about seducing women, ruining his relationship with Jordan and forcing him to figure out what really matters. Critics slammed the movie for having a shallow plot that glorified drinking and made bartenders look like glamorous party animals, ignoring real-life consequences like addiction or health risks. Parent groups complained that it normalized excessive drinking and promiscuity for young audiences. Tom Cruise spent weeks practicing bottle flipping to nail the bartending sequences that became iconic. He later said the role was fun but shallow, less fulfilling than his dramatic work, and more about style than substance. The dynamic between Cruise and Brian Brown mirrored their mentor-protege characters, but there was real tension because Brown struggled being second to Cruise's exploding star power. They kept mutual respect while director Roger Donaldson demanded repeated takes, leaving both actors exhausted from perfecting synchronized routines. Brown found it challenging dealing with Cruise's growing ego and media attention as the young star changed the power dynamics on set. Despite no major blow-ups, the film made over $77 million, even with accusations that it irresponsibly glamorized the 1980s culture of excess without showing any downsides. But that upbeat, flashy tone is exactly why fans loved it, enjoying it as pure escapist entertainment that captured the decade's obsession with style over consequences. Ishtar follows two awful lounge singers, Lyle and Chuck, chasing their dreams until a cheap Moroccan hotel job accidentally throws them into Cold War espionage with a lost map, CIA agents, and rebel factions. They're too clueless to understand what's happening, while Isabel, a mysterious revolutionary, uses them as unwitting pawns in this desert nightmare. Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman played completely foolish characters, bumbling through sandstorms, gunfire, and an absurd adventure that mocks both buddy comedies and superpower rivalries at the same time. Critics didn't just hate this movie. They made it Hollywood's ultimate example of wasted money after the budget jumped to $55 million, with politicians even citing Ishtar as proof studios had lost their minds. Industry insiders whispered that director Elaine May's career was over. Filming in the real Moroccan desert was brutal for Beatty and Hoffman, who faced relentless heat, unpredictable sandstorms, melting makeup, and heat exhaustion.
May pushed them hard, saying that if the camels could work till noon, so could they, leaving Beatty wandering around unshaven, wondering if he'd ever work again, while Hoffman collapsed between takes in heavy, dusty costumes. May's perfectionism caused daily shouting matches with the stars over everything from line readings to whether Beatty should sing flat or sharp in one nightclub scene, a debate that dragged on while confused extras watched the meltdown. Beatty even had to pay production costs himself just to finish the film after the studio cut funding. The backlash was so harsh that Beatty and Hoffman publicly distanced themselves from the project for years, even while defending May's vision. It ruined her chances of directing major Hollywood films and made Ishtar a shorthand for industry disasters. But decades later, critics re-examined it as a misunderstood dark comedy that was famously ahead of its time.